It's fashion in Africa.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, Africa's fashion industry is a big business these days.
Valued at $31 billion, Africa's fashion industry is witnessing impressive growth.
Fueled by its young population and an increasing admiration for African design.
Although there are investment-related challenges, programs like the British Council's DNA initiative offer essential support to empower African fashion businesses to succeed on the global stage.
So, the raised questions are,
what factors drive the growth of Africa's fashion industry?
how does African fashion blend tradition and innovation globally?
What challenges hinder the full potential of African fashion?
I can't wait to unpack this.
African fashion is a vibrant tapestry of colors, patterns, and cultural significance that spans centuries of tradition and innovation. From the intricate beadwork of the Maasai to the bold prints of West African Ankara fabric, each region tells its own unique style story through cloth and design. Traditional African fashion has always been about more than just clothing. Every pattern, every color choice, every accessory carries deep meaning, often indicating social status, marital status, or tribal affiliation. The iconic bubu of West Africa, with its flowing silhouette, doesn't just provide protection from the sun, it represents dignity and grace. Modern African designers are now brilliantly fusing these time-honored elements with contemporary aesthetics. They're taking traditional techniques like hand-weaving kente cloth and transforming them into sleek, modern silhouettes that appeal to a global audience. Cities like Lagos, Johannesburg, and Nairobi have become dynamic fashion capitals, hosting international fashion weeks that showcase this exciting blend of old and new.
Welcome to our Afrotake article, everyone. This one is all about African fashion, and wow, I gotta say, these articles you sent in have been eye-opening.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the historical one had me glued to the pages, and that one about the modern scene, like, seriously, I had no clue how big this whole thing is becoming.
It's pretty remarkable.
No kidding. So right off the bat, let's just ditch those old stereotypes. African fashion, it's way more than just like tribal prints or exotic looks.
Yeah.
It's like this incredible mix of centuries of tradition, innovation, and just straight up cultural pride.
Absolutely.
And it feels like it's about to like explode on the global scene.
Yeah, and I think what people often miss is the depth and complexity of African fashion, even way back in time. Even with the earliest clothing, you see this beautiful mix of function and symbolism.
Okay, I'm already hooked. Tell me more.
So, like, think about bark cloth and furs.
Okay.
These weren't just practical choices for warmer climates.
Right.
They represented a deep connection to nature.
Yeah.
And often carried, like, spiritual meanings.
Wow. I never thought of it like that. And what about those early pieces with like the seashells and ostrich eggs? I mean, the craftsmanship on those must have been insane.
Absolutely. Every single detail, from the materials to the embellishments, it all had a purpose. It could be a status symbol within a community, or mark a major life change, or even be a way to like communicate with spirits.
So each piece is like its own story. That's so cool. And then you've got the colors and patterns. I was reading about how those became linked to different ethnic groups.
Exactly. They became powerful markers of identity,
Yeah.
Just imagine like this sea of people, and each group is distinct because of their textiles, patterns, and colors.
Wow, what a visual.
Right? It's a powerful representation of just how diverse the continent's cultures are.
Amazing. And then in the 15th century, you have these new trade routes popping up, bringing all these fresh materials and influences.
Totally. Imagine the impact when things like silk, cotton, and raffia suddenly become available.
Yeah.
It's like this explosion of creative possibilities. But the story of wax prints, that's got to be one of the most fascinating.
Oh, yeah, the article touched on that, and I was definitely curious to hear more.
Well, get this. Wax prints, they didn't actually start in Africa.
Really?
Nope, they were created in Indonesia, and then the Dutch, they adopted them and tried to sell them back to the Indonesians, but it was a total flop.
Ah, wow.
And then they brought them to Africa where they just blew up. And I read that some of the designs like evolved into this secret language.
Yes, that's right. A great example is in Ghana. They have these Adinkra symbols.
Okay.
Traditionally, they're printed on cloth, and each one has a special meaning, like the Sankofa symbol. It's a bird looking back over its shoulder. It means learning from the past. Imagine wearing clothes with these hidden messages.
That's so cool. It's like a secret code on your clothes.
Yeah.
But, we can't talk about the expansion of trade without talking about the dark side of colonialism.
Yeah.
It really messed with traditional dress in many parts of Africa. Yeah, for sure. It's a tough history. In a lot of urban areas, Western clothing was just forced on people, and traditional clothes were seen as like backwards or uncivilized.
Ugh, it's hard to even think about, like those cultural expressions were just being crushed. But the good news is traditional clothing remained super strong in rural communities.
Yes,
And it's making a comeback in the cities now, too.
exactly. You see men rocking caftans to work,
Yeah.
embracing their heritage.
Love it.
And then there's the Saipers in Congo. They're fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about them.
Okay, so they're known for this super flamboyant style. Like they've taken European high fashion and reinterpreted it.
Interesting.
They take those European elements and blend them with their own Congolese flair, using color, pattern, and attitude to make a statement.
It's like they're taking fashion back, using it to express themselves. And it makes me think about how often Africa has been like referenced in fashion, but not always in a good way.
Oh, totally. There have definitely been times when African designs were just ripped off, used superficially, without any respect for their cultural meaning.
Exactly, which is why it's so important to point out when it's done right. Like that Yves Saint Laurent collection in '67, where he incorporated elements like wooden beads and raffia, and even paid homage to Bambara sculptures.
Yeah, great example. He took inspiration from Africa without copying or trivializing it.
For sure, and it makes you think about that whole cultural appreciation versus appropriation thing.
Big time.
Ah,
Especially when you look at art history. Like, what about Picasso's African period and the way he used African masks in Les Demoiselles d'Avignon? It was controversial, to say the least.
definitely.
I mean, Picasso denied being directly influenced, but the similarities are pretty obvious.
Right.
It raises questions about credit and respect when it comes to artistic inspiration. That debate's still going strong today.
Yeah, for sure. It's important to have these conversations. And speaking of changing perceptions, it is amazing to see African fashion getting its time to shine on the world stage.
It really is.
From runways to red carpets, African designs are everywhere, and it's about time.
Definitely.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the amazing world of African fashion. We were just talking about how African fashion is totally taking the world by storm, and I'm dying to know more about why that is.
Well, it's definitely exciting to see. We touched on celebrities and Afrobeats, but it's even bigger than that.
Yeah.
There's this, deeper cultural shift going on, a resurgence of pride in African heritage, and that's a huge part of this whole movement.
I totally got that feeling reading these articles. It's like rediscovering and reclaiming identity through fashion.
Exactly. And it's not just on the continent either. The African diaspora, they're playing a huge role in this global embrace of African fashion.
Yeah.
Think about it. Young people of African descent, literally all over the world, they're connecting with their roots through clothes and hairstyles and accessories.
Right. It's a powerful statement.
It is. It's like they're saying, this is me and I'm proud.
Mm.
And social media, wow, it's been a game changer. All these styles and trends can spread like wildfire now.
Totally. Social media has democratized fashion, hasn't it?
It has. African designers can showcase their work to everyone all over the world.
They don't have to go through the traditional gatekeepers of the industry anymore.
Nope.
They can just put it out there.
Exactly.
Share their vision, connect with people who are looking for something real and with meaning. Speaking of which, it struck me how each piece of African fashion is like carrying a piece of history,
Yes.
a cultural narrative, a personal expression.
That's what's so great about African fashion. It's not just about looking good.
Right.
It's about heritage, craftsmanship, and connection to something bigger.
I love that.
Like, think about all that intricate beadwork
Oh, yeah.
in traditional clothes.
Amazing.
It's not just there to be pretty.
Right.
It has symbolic meaning. Tells stories of ancestry, spirituality, and cultural values.
It's like wearing a work of art.
It is.
And then you've got things like Lagos Fashion Week.
Oh, yeah.
They're putting African fashion on the map.
Absolutely crucial. Events like that are key for showcasing the talent and creativity coming out of Africa.
Right.
They get international buyers, media attention, and create opportunities for designers to grow and collaborate.
I was reading about how Lagos Fashion Week has helped create partnerships between African designers and global brands.
Yeah.
It's helping lift African fashion up onto a world stage.
It's a sign that people are recognizing African fashion as a major player. And it's not just about the looks either. There's this growing movement in Africa towards sustainable and ethical fashion.
Yes. That was so cool to read about. Designers using traditional techniques and working with local artisans and choosing eco-friendly materials.
Exactly. They're blending tradition with innovation and creating a new model for the fashion industry, one that's both stylish and responsible.
And people are noticing. Consumers want fashion that matches their values, and African fashion is doing that.
Absolutely. It's like this perfect storm, you know?
Yeah.
A cultural shift, global audience craving authenticity, and a commitment to sustainability.
Wow.
That's really cool to see.
So what do you say to people who still think African fashion is just a trend?
I'd say look closer. African fashion isn't going anywhere. This is a cultural renaissance.
Yeah.
It's been building for years. You know, it's rooted in history, fueled by passionate creators, and driven by a deep sense of purpose.
It's about challenging the status quo and redefining beauty,
Yes.
reclaiming a narrative that's been silenced for too long,
Yes.
and doing it with style and substance.
Exactly.
Oh, and before we jump into the future of African fashion, we have to mention the incredible craftsmanship.
Oh, yeah.
It's just mind-blowing, especially all the beadwork and embroidery, the skill and patience. It's remarkable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Those artisans are the heart of African fashion.
They keep those traditional techniques alive.
Yes.
Push the boundaries of creativity. But it's sad because their work is often undervalued. People try to take advantage of them.
It's true. It's critical that we support ethical practices and make sure these artisans are getting fair wages
Definitely.
and safe working conditions. And that's where consumers come in, too.
Totally.
Choosing brands that value ethical production is key to creating a more sustainable and fair fashion industry. But, you know, we have to be real. Even though African fashion is booming, there are still some big challenges ahead.
Right, I was just thinking about that. Investment, infrastructure, competition from fast fashion giants. It's like David versus Goliath.
It is.
Yeah.
But the African fashion community, they're resilient. You know, they're determined. And that leads us perfectly into the last part of our deep dive, where we'll look at the future of African fashion and how it can take over the world.
The influence of African fashion on global style cannot be overstated. Major fashion houses regularly draw inspiration from African textiles and techniques. The continent's rich fashion heritage continues to evolve, proving that African fashion isn't just about preserving tradition, it's about creating the future of global style. African fashion has also become a powerful economic force, with local designers building sustainable businesses that employ artisans and preserve traditional craftsmanship while meeting modern market demands. This renaissance in African fashion is not just changing how the world dresses, it's changing how the world sees Africa.
Welcome back to our final part of this deep dive into African fashion. It's been quite a journey, right? From like the ancient origins to this global boom that's happening now.
It really shows you how much fashion can tell us about culture and history and even economics.
Whoa, totally. And speaking of economics, let's talk about the future. What's next for African fashion?
Well, the articles we read, they paint a pretty exciting picture, you know. Massive growth, potential to dominate the global market, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I was blown away by the projections.
And there are some really solid reasons behind them. One thing that jumped out at me was like the demographics in Africa.
Okay, yeah.
A huge young population, a growing middle class that's a massive consumer base that's increasingly interested in fashion and expressing themselves through what they wear.
It's like this whole new generation of fashion lovers is coming up, and they want something that reflects their heritage, their dreams, who they are.
Exactly. And because of things like e-commerce and social media, African designers can reach them directly, not just in Africa, but globally.
So cool. Those barriers are coming down, and it's creating all these chances for African brands to connect with people who are like craving their unique style.
And it's not just individuals either. Even the big fashion houses and retailers, they're starting to pay attention.
Yeah, it's about time, right?
It is. People are realizing that African fashion isn't just a trend, it's a movement that's here to stay. We're seeing African-inspired designs everywhere, from runways to magazines to stores.
It's like this validation of what we've been saying all along, that American fashion has the creativity, the quality, the cultural depth to compete at a global level.
For sure. And that recognition is bringing in real investment opportunities.
Yeah, there's a lot more funding flowing into the African fashion industry now, and that's what's needed to support new designers, build the infrastructure to really take things to the next level.
Exactly. We talked about those challenges before, like lack of access to capital and resources. But there are some great initiatives out there, like the British Council's Creative DNA program and the Tony Alumelu Foundation.
It's amazing to see organizations like those providing mentorship, training, and funding to the next generation of African fashion leaders.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the innovation happening, how African designers are mixing those traditional techniques with modern looks.
Yeah, that blew me away too. It creates something so unique and eye-catching.
It's that mix of heritage and modernity that makes African fashion so captivating. Taking those amazing textile traditions, the intricate craftsmanship, the vibrant colors, and adding a contemporary twist that speaks to a global audience.
It's taking the best of the past and present to make something totally new and exciting. And we can't forget about the focus on sustainability and ethical production, too.
That's a huge part of it, and it's resonating with consumers. They care about the environment, about fair labor practices, and African designers are leading the charge in a lot of ways.
It's like they're at the forefront of creating a more conscious and responsible fashion industry, which is so important.
Couldn't agree more. But, even with all this amazing progress, there are still some bumps in the road.
Yeah, for sure. It's not all smooth sailing. There's still the issue of limited manufacturing, high import duties, a lack of skilled labor in some areas.
Right. And then there's the problem of counterfeit goods flooding the market, which really hurts the authentic African brands.
It's a reminder that things don't always move in a straight line,
Oh, yeah.
There's still work to do.
Definitely. But even with those challenges, I'm super optimistic about what the future holds for African fashion.
Me too. You can't deny the talent, the creativity, the entrepreneurial spirit that's driving this movement.
Absolutely. And with the right support, the investment, the collaboration, I truly believe African fashion has the potential to not just compete, but to lead the global fashion industry.
Wow, what an amazing journey this deep dive has been. From its ancient roots to its global aspirations, African fashion really showcases the power of creativity, resilience, and cultural pride.
I couldn't have said it better myself. So to our listener, we hope this deep dive has ignited your curiosity and giving you a glimpse into this incredibly vibrant and dynamic world.
Yeah. If you're feeling inspired, we encourage you to seek out African designers, explore their collections, and maybe even add a touch of their unique style to your own wardrobe.
Embrace the colors, the patterns, the stories woven into every piece. Support ethical brands, appreciate the craftsmanship, and we will have part 2 of this topic if you stay updated by subscribing to our channel.
Yes, and set yourself up for our newsletter for weekly updates so you don't miss a thing. And until next time, stay curious, stay stylish, and keep exploring the amazing world of fashion.